Hey, good afternoon, everyone. We call this meeting to order. Today is the 13th of September, and this is the Finance Administration Committee and a special meeting for directors of West Basin Municipal Water District. So with that, if our general manager, EJ Caldwell, could determine the quorum.
Happy to do that, President Houston. Director Harold Williams. Here. President and Chair Scott Houston.
Here.
Director Gloria Gray.
Here.
Director Don Deere. Here. Director Desi Alvarez. Houston, we have a quorum.
Excellent. Thank you. So for the 5 present, we will move on. Public comment. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak here or on the platform?
Mr. Chairman, we have not received any requests for public comment, though, as you mentioned, this meeting is being held both in person and virtually. If we have any virtual guests who would like to make public comment, please indicate so by raising your virtual hand. Mr. Chair, I do not see any requests for public comment.
Thank you very much. Okay, so item 4, presentations. We do have a presentation. EJ.
Yes, we do, Mr. Chairman. And before I introduce this item, I did want to point out that we do have one of our newest employees here at the district for this committee. We have Orlando Ramirez, our office assistant. And she started earlier this month. She just graduated from Cal State Long Beach, and she has a Bachelor of Arts in Communication Studies. So she'll be helping out our admin team and rounding out all of the services that they provide. So I'm excited to introduce Orlando to you.
Welcome. Nice to have you aboard.
I'm coming from one of the best universities in the world.
So the item that we have before you is item 4A. It's our annual investment portfolio presentation by Chandler Asset Management. And for this presentation, we have our manager of finance, Marianne Rexroad, to introduce our guest.
Thank you, EJ. Good afternoon, Chairman Houston, members of the committee and board. Yes, I'm happy to welcome Chandler Asset Management here today to present their annual investment portfolio. Just a way of background, Chandler was hired back in April of 2021 through a competitive process. They are our investment managers. As you may recall, last year we did have Mia Corral Brown as well as Alana Sampson here making the presentation. Unfortunately, with the change in the dates, they had prior commitments and couldn't make it this afternoon. However, I'm happy to introduce Chris McCary. He is the senior portfolio strategist with Chandler Asset Management, and he may look familiar. I think you presented virtually back in 2021, but he will be presenting this afternoon. There's also some handouts that he brought, but that presentation is also in your packet starting on page 4. And with that, I'll hand it over to Chris.
Thank you, Marianne. And Chairman, members, directors, and members of the committee and the board, thank you for having me here. As we've done in the past, what I'd like to do is just do some comments on the economy, and then we'll get into the district's portfolio. So for those that have the handout, what I'd like to do is start on page 3 with the economic update. As we look at the economy currently and moving into the end of 2023, the theme that follows is that we continue to expect and see positive growth in the economy. However, it's below trend. And what we're seeing is that there are some headwinds on the horizon. With the economy itself, one of the major themes that we've seen throughout the summer specifically has been the resilience of the labor market and the consumer. In a sense, the resiliency of the labor market and the consumer has pushed out that conversation around the potential for a recession. With that, though, there are definitely headwinds specifically related to the consumer as we move into the end of 2023. That being said, the Fed is still in their tightening policy. We expect them to continue to pause coming off of their most recent rate rise in July, but the Fed is continually, as they mentioned, data dependent. So if they do see the data like inflation that came out today, that would actually increase for the first time since February in the CPI, that it could be something where they do have the right to continue to potentially raise rates. As we move to the next page on page 4, as I mentioned, one of the biggest themes this year and throughout the summer has been the resiliency of the labor market. Non-farm payrolls came in August at 187,000. And what we see right now is the unemployment rate is actually at 50-year lows. And we are better than where we were, stronger in a labor situation pre-pandemic. The unemployment rate came in August at 3.8%, increasing from where it was in July, but that's due to the fact that we saw an increase in participation in the labor market. Locally in California, the unemployment rate is actually at 4.6% when we compare that to the nation. And then in LA County, it's actually at 5.4%. Overall, when we look at that graph in the upper left-hand corner, you're seeing the labor market is moderating continually to get to going down. However, what the concern is that there's still a large amount of job openings in this market. So if we look to the next page, page 5, this is a new graph that we've added to our presentations, which is the JOLT report, or the Job Openings and Labor Turnover Survey. What this graph is showing is the amount of jobs that are available in the market right now. Now, it has been trending downwards this year, but when we look at it from a historical perspective, going all the way back 20 years, it is very high. Right now, job openings are around 8.8 million. And if you want to take that in consideration, what that means is that for one person looking for a job, there's about 1.5 to 1.6 jobs available for that person. Okay. And when we also look at the historical average of job openings, you can see we're still way above that level. So when we talk about the challenges or approaching a recession, the labor market is showing us that the economy is still relatively strong. Unemployment rates generally for a healthy economy around 4.4%, we're at 3.8. In a recession, generally the unemployment rates get to around 10%. So we still have a ways to go looking at the data from the employment standpoint for that conversation to start happening relative to potential recessions or that soft or hard landing. That then combined with the inflation numbers, if we look on page 6, which has definitely been, I know, the theme over the past year, 2 years, high inflation coming out of the pandemic, has been trending downwards. You'll notice that graph, the CPI on the upper left-hand corner, has been positively trending downwards, unfortunately, until today. Core CPI, which is removing energy and food prices, came in at a positive 3%, which is the first acceleration we have seen in core CPI since February. Also, in addition to the CPI that came in this month, core CPI was a positive 0.6, regular CPI was 0.3. It was due to high energy costs, as well as rent, air travel, and car insurance. So one of the concerns is that could we start to see an increase in pricing pressures as we move into the end of 2023? One metric is not indicative of a trend, but it's something to look at. We also want to look at what is the Fed's target for inflation. It is that core PCE on the upper right-hand corner. The core PCE right now coming in above 4% when the Fed's target is at that 2% level. Why have we seen possibly an uptick in inflation? The resiliency of the consumer. So if we go to page 7, the consumer is a metric that we look at because 70% of our GDP comes from consumption. Even though we have seen a moderation, as you look at the retail sales numbers in that chart in the upper left-hand corner, we did see a little uptick this summer. A lot of that can be attributed to the Barbenheimer effect with the movies related to Oppenheimer and the Barbie movie, as well as concerts that we saw that helped jolt the economy. However, there are definitely some headwinds relative to the consumer that are cause for concern as we move into the end of this year. First, student loan payments for some are coming on board with those interest accruals already starting in September. And another concern is the amount of disposable income the consumer has. It's starting to lessen. What we saw in June is actually U.S. credit card debt surpassed $1 trillion. Right now, it's about 1.27 trillion. So we're seeing the consumer starting to utilize credit more, and that could definitely be a concern as we move into the spending season towards the holidays, that we're not going to see the same type of level of spending that we've seen over the past couple of years, and then therefore, again, impacts the overall growth for the economy. I'm going to jump ahead a couple pages as well as we look at GDP on page 11. With GDP, we are expecting, as I mentioned before, positive growth, but below trend. We did see GDP in the second quarter come in at 2.1%. We're expecting GDP in the third quarter and for 2023 to come in at 2%. It is positive, but is still below trend. The next page with regards to the Fed on page 12 of the presentation, you can see the Fed has increased the federal funds rate in July back to the highest level that we've seen in 20 years at that 5.5% level. But they have indicated that they are going to be data dependent on their next actions moving forward. The Fed is meeting next week. We feel, and the market feels, that even though the CPI number came in high today, or in a sense accelerated relative to the past couple of numbers, we do not feel that the Fed is actually going to increase the federal funds rate next week. They are technically on a pause right now because they want to see the impacts that we could see relative to the inflation numbers, as well as their increase in the federal funds rate in July has on the overall economy. Following that, from the Fed's interest rate hikes that we saw over the past year, bond yields, which is something that's very important for the district that we look at on page 13, we saw that increase in yields coming out of the pandemic. And then that chart in the upper right-hand corner shows a quote unquote inverted yield curve. What an inverted yield curve is that yields on the short end of the curve are higher than they are on the longer end of the curve. We have seen this moderate or flatten over the past quarter, which is generally a positive. But overall, the challenge with that is an inverted yield curve historically has been a harbinger of a recession to come down the line, anywhere between 18 to 24 months. The yield curve has been inverted for over a year now. So that's one thing we constantly monitor to see the impact that overall yields have. When we look at this with these metrics, as I mentioned before, with the overall economy, we're expecting continued growth as we move through the end of 2023 into 2024. However, those headwinds specifically related to consumer could definitely cause some challenges relative to that expectations of continued growth at the levels that we see right now. Before I move on to the district's portfolio, are there any questions?
Any questions?
Yes.
You said credit card debt was now what, over $1 trillion?
Yes.
And I don't recall that, when was the last time it was ever this high?
It has never crossed over $1 trillion. So that's why that metric in June, I think, is something that's very notable. And one of the things we're looking at credit card debt is actually defaults coming in. There is concerns, and I think it's interesting when you look at credit defaults, the first thing you want to look at is same store credit cards. So Macy's, Kohl's. If individuals start defaulting on some of those payments on a monthly basis, that could definitely be a harbinger of things to come. But it's also indicative of the fact that the savings amount that the consumer has is starting to shrink. And therefore, they're having to put more on credit.
What was the highest it was historically before? I mean,
I don't have that metric. I get that for you.
but it never hit $1 trillion.
It never hit $1
You
trillion.
said it was over $1 trillion. I think
So in June, it hit $1 trillion, and right now it's 1.27 trillion.
a lot of this lately in the news, so of course, it's always a bad sign when credit card debts are starting to go up.
It is, because the concern is that therefore what that's going to do, it's going to inhibit discretionary spending. And so what we'll start to see is individuals stop hesitating to go out, to go to restaurants, to go to concerts, things of that nature. And then therefore that could overall impact the overall economy, because 70% of our GDP comes from us going out to restaurants and bars and going to games.
Yeah, Director Williams, a comment. I've noticed that although folks are not going out to dinner as much, out to restaurants, but they are doing an awful lot of shopping online and ordering food online. And I see that young people who seem to have access to credit cards buy a lot of stuff online. We see the delivery trucks on our street and in the neighborhood, all over the place. What's up with that?
I think it's a byproduct of the pandemic. And one of the things that I saw coming out of the pandemic, which I was kind of shocked about, was my grandmother ordering her groceries online. And so there has been that trend of utilizing the online features that are available to individuals. And you saw a movement. Amazon Prime Day was actually a burst, a support to the overall economy that we saw over the summer. I think it's a trend not only here in the United States, but actually globally, where individuals, especially younger individuals, are utilizing the ability to order food, groceries, products online. Therefore, the concern with that then is the impact that that has on retail shops, brick and mortar. You're already starting to see some concerns of malls, actually levels of malls closing, and you're starting to see that shift to high-end malls that will to attract individuals. So the impact that you see on the overall commercial real estate market continues to have an impact with that. And I think that combined with the work from home impact of the pandemic could have some challenges relative to the real estate market moving forward from a commercial aspect. I think it is just a migration of our overall economy. As cell phones become more prominent and individuals have the ability to order at any place they want to, it's just something that's going to continue to move forward and enhance, in my opinion.
Thank you. Any other questions?
So we look at the district's portfolio. I'm going to start on page 15. First off, for the investment objectives is to make sure in priority that we provide a safe and preservation of capital for the overall portfolio. Secondarily, providing sufficient liquidity for cash needs. And then third, providing a consistent market rate of return based off of a benchmark that was selected for the district. Those performance investment objectives, as you can see here, are based off of a total return through a market cycle, based off a 1 to 3 year Treasury Agency Index. And the strategies to make sure we are achieving these, keeping California government code as well as the district's investment policy in line. The next page, on page 16 and 17, I believe are the two most important pages in this presentation. What this shows is that the district's portfolio is in compliance, not only with California government code, but also with the district's investment policy. Now, page 18, to review the portfolio characteristics for the district. And I'm going to focus on that center column where we see for portfolio. The average maturity is 1.86 years. And again, this is as of the end of July. That modified duration, just under 1.6 years. The purchase yield, 2.21%. The market yield, 5.14. Average credit quality of AA, and the total market value, just over 40.2 million. The comparison from where we were back, as you can see here in June, the purchase yield for the district's portfolio has increased, as well as the overall market value. Thing I want to point out too, generally when we see a market value increase that could, or in a sense, an interest rate increase, that could have an inverse impact on the market value. However, during this time period, even over a month, the market value increased. What to me is that's indicative of is the income that the district is receiving from its positions in the portfolio is starting to be at that level where it's offsetting any unrealized losses that you could see in the portfolio. I think that's important when we look at the income differential from a year. So I went back and took a look to see back at the end of July 2022, the income that the district received off of its positions was just over $31,000, so $31,253. This past July, the income the district received in its portfolio was $74,352, an increase of over 230%. So you're seeing as interest rates have risen, the district is actually benefiting from those high interest rates as well in the form of higher income. The next page, on page 19, what you can see here is the sector distribution for the portfolio. I'm going to focus on the pie chart of that donut on the left-hand side, showing July 31st, 2023. The portfolio is very well diversified and very up in quality. As you can see, the majority of the portfolio is in U.S. Treasuries at 41%. I know, and that was representative of the letter that director had received. We also see agencies at just under 18%, corporates at 25.1%. We did see an increase in supranational debt from that time period from the end of June up to about just under 4%, as well as in asset backs and CMOs around 5.8 and 5.5%. What I like to say is the portfolio is very well diversified relative to the sectors that are approved for California government code, as well as to the district's investment policy. Here's the next page, page 20. What you can see here is the list of all of the issuers for the district's portfolio, very high quality. I would also like to point out that at no time was the district invested in Signature Bank, Silicon Valley Bank, or Credit Suisse, banks that we saw some challenges in the first quarter of this year. I also like to point out that Credit Suisse was actually available for the district to purchase per California code and per the policy based off of its rating eligibility. But due to our internal credit analysis process, it was not something that we were comfortable in or had conviction in. So therefore, it was never included or purchased, honestly, for any of our clients' portfolios. But what this reinforces is the high quality portfolio that the district has. We jump to page 22. You can see that quality distribution, where you'll notice that over 60% of the portfolio is AA rated, 23.4% in single A, and those non-rated positions of 5.7% are the asset-backed securities and or the supranational debt that are not rated by S&P. If this portfolio is rated by Moody's, you would actually see the majority of it in AAA. It's because S&P has the U.S. government rated at AA. Move to page 23, the duration distribution. As you can see here, this is the maturity distribution for the district's portfolio. Very highly liquid on the short end, with over 35% maturing in less than a year. And I would like to point out that moving forward, we do see some opportunities on the long end of the curve. So new purchases will be made to lock in some of the yields where we see right now, and kind of a structure of taking advantage of the high yields on the short end of the curve, as well as locking in some longer term yields on the longer end as well, moving forward. And page 24 is the investment performance, or in a sense, the report card for the portfolio. As you can see here, the district's portfolio over the past 3 months had a positive 18% return, 0.18% return, whereas the benchmark came in at a minus 0.47. Over the past 12 months, portfolio is 1.44%, where the benchmark is at 0.15. And then going to inception back in April or March 31st, 2021, minus 0.39% compared to the benchmark at minus 12.4%. The banking issue that we saw in March that I already alluded to had a reversal in June, hence why we saw for the past 3 months that positive total return for the portfolio. The market had that reversal in yields coming back down from the highs that we saw in March due to the banking crisis, or small banking crisis. And then on page 20, moving forward, starting page 26 are the holdings for the district's portfolio, as well as on page 34, the most recent transactions. And I can answer any questions on any of the positions, on any of the sectors, or any of the other information that is available in our presentation.
And I just wanted to add, so what Chris is sharing with us today is the portfolio that PFM, or excuse me, Chandler Asset Management manages. So we do have those other investments that Sandra will share with you later on. It includes California Class and LAIF, and then of course what's in some of the CDs and CDARS programs that we have outside of this portfolio.
So that concludes your presentation. Okay. Very good, thank you. Any questions from our colleagues?
Well presented.
Thank you. Director Gray, any questions or comments?
No, but very interesting presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't really have anything else to add. I think this is a really good presentation, let alone well stated. So thank you very much, and thank you for the work you all are doing on behalf of the district and working with our finance department to manage our resources. So definitely appreciate you being here in person to get through. Thank you. Let's see, with that, next item is our action calendar 5A, approval of minutes. EJ.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this item 5A is approval of minutes. We do have 2 sets. The first is July 24th, 2023, regular board meeting. And we also have August 28th of 2023, also a regular board meeting. For this presentation, we have Desiree Quintero, our manager of administration.
Yes, good afternoon, committee and board. The approval of minutes can be found beginning on packet page 41. The minutes for the West Basin Board of Directors meetings are an integral part of the public meeting process as they provide a history of actions taken at board meetings. Today, the following minutes have been attached for the board's consideration. The July 24th, 2023 regular board meeting minutes, which can be found beginning on packet page 43. Also have the August 28th, 2023 regular board meeting minutes, which can be found beginning on packet page 48. With that, I will read the recommendation. Staff recommends that the board approve the July 24, 2023 regular board minutes and the August 28, 2023 regular board meeting minutes.
Very good, thank you, Desiree. So any questions or comments from board members on these minutes? I see nothing out of the ordinary with these or out of order with these. How about that? So I would recommend you move forward to the board with recommendation of approval. Yes.
I concur. Director Williams concurs.
Go. 5B is in boy, sponsorship of fiscal year 2023-24 community outreach events.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have three items under item 5B. For this presentation, we have Haza Basket, our Deputy Board Secretary, too.
Good afternoon, President Houston, members of the committee and board. If I could turn your attention to packet page 54, where item 5B fiscal year 23-24 community outreach events begin. As EJ mentioned, we do have three items for your consideration today. The first is a request from Director Houston for West Basin to sponsor the Grades of Green Birthday 2023 event that is scheduled to be held on Thursday, October 12th, 2023. Director Houston would like the board to consider a $1,000 sponsorship, and that would grant West Basin a speaking opportunity for a district representative. I'd like to note that West Basin has not previously sponsored this event, but additional information regarding the sponsorship request is included in attachment A, and that begins on packet page 56. Next item that I have for you is the Topanga Film Festival 2023 event. Director Houston requests consideration for West Basin to sponsor the Topanga Film Festival 2023 event that is scheduled to be held from Thursday, October 19th to Sunday, October 22nd, 2023. Director Houston would like the board to consider a $2,000 sponsorship that would grant West Basin a speaking opportunity for a district representative, a booth/table to distribute district information, as well as an advertisement promoting district awareness. Similar to the previous one, West Basin has not previously sponsored this event. Additional information for this sponsorship request can be found in attachment B, and that begins on packet page 63. Last item that I have for your consideration is the South Bay Workforce Investment Board's 20th Annual Awards Ceremony. Director Gray requests consideration for West Basin to sponsor the South Bay Workforce Investment Board's 28th Annual Awards Ceremony event that is scheduled to be held on Thursday, November 9th, 2023. Director Gray would like the board to consider a $5,000 sponsorship, and that would grant West Basin an advertisement promoting district awareness. West Basin previously sponsored this event last year in fiscal year 22-23 in the amount of $5,000, and at that time we also received an advertisement. Additional information regarding this event can be found in attachment C, and that begins on packet page 66 for your reference. Now turn your attention to packet page 55 to discuss the fiscal impact of these sponsorships. Funds for the sponsorship of community outreach events are included in the fiscal year 23-24 community outreach budget in the total amount of $75,000. Approving the sponsorship of the Grades of Green Verte 2023 event in the proposed amount of $1,000, the Topanga Film Festival 2023 event in the proposed amount of $2,000, and the South Bay WITS 29th Annual Awards Ceremony in the proposed amount of $5,000 would leave a remaining budget of $42,700. And with that, I'd be happy to read the recommendation. Number one, Director Houston requests that the board consider approving sponsorship of the Grades of Green Verte 2023 event scheduled to be held on October 12, 2023 in the amount of $1,000. Number two, Director Houston requests that the board consider approving sponsorship of the Topanga Film Festival 2023 event scheduled to be held from October 19, 2023 to October 22nd, 2023 in the amount of $2,000. And number three, Director Gray requests that the board consider approving sponsorship of the South Bay Workforce Investment Board's 28th Annual Awards Ceremony event scheduled to be held on November 2023 in the amount of $5,000. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any of your questions.
Thank you, Haza. Quite a mouthful of information.
A whole lot.
With that, I don't have any questions before I ask Director Winters. I should say, by the way, I love that we support the Workforce Investment Board. We've been doing this for years. So thank you, Director Gray, for always bringing that forward to us. So hopefully we'll continue doing that. But with that, I'll open up to questions and comments. First, Director Williams.
No questions. Comment is that I support all of this, especially, all of it.
So you recommend yes to the board?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Director Gray, I hear you.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you. I'm not on the committee, so I'll wait to vote, but I do support all of them. I do have a question. Is there a table that South Bay is giving us along with the sponsorship? Did we get a table? Isn't that what we normally get in advertisement, Desiree?
So the $5,000 level does include a few things. In addition to the advertisement, this level also gives us a table of 10, in addition
Right.
to our logo being used throughout their programs, name recognition, I believe, yep, and name recognition throughout their materials.
Perfect. Okay. That was my question. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Director, and you get something about a one full page for journal advertisement.
The advertisement, yeah.
Very good. Director Deere, any questions? Okay, thank you. So with that, Director Williams agrees, and I agree with him that we should move forward with the recommendation of yes for approval. So the staff can go ahead and add that to the agenda at the end of the month. With that, thank you, Hay. So we're going to go to item 5C as in cat, year 23-24 district sponsorships, EJ.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this item before you does include 2 items for consideration of district sponsorships. Again, for this presentation, we have Hayes Vasquez.
Hello there again. If I could turn your attention to packet page 72, where item 5C begins. And as EJ mentioned, we do have 2 items for your consideration today. The first item that I have before you is a sponsorship request for the Southwest Membrane Operators Association, also known as SMOA, their 2023 annual conference event that is being held in Irvine in November, beginning November 7th through November 8th. So it's those 2 days. We did previously sponsor this event in fiscal year 21-22 in the amount of $500. And for this year, they have a few levels ranging from $5,000 at the highest to $600 at the lowest. Additional information for this sponsorship can be found in attachment A, and that begins on packet page 74. The next item that I have for your consideration today is for the Aqua 2023 Fall Conference. This event is scheduled to be held in Indian Wells, and that will be held Tuesday, November 28th through Thursday, November 30th, out again in Indian Wells. We did previously sponsor this event in the last fiscal year in the amount of $6,500. And this year, there are a few different levels beginning at $15,000 at the highest, down to $1,000. And there are also opportunities to sponsor individual breakfasts, networking events throughout the conference. I don't have those listed specifically, but you can find additional details on those as well as the previous levels mentioned in attachment B, which begins on packet page 77. So now turning your attention to page 73 to discuss the fiscal impact for this. Funds for the proposed sponsorships are included in the fiscal year 23-24 sponsorship budget in the amount of $55,000. At this time, since staff is requesting that the committee provide a recommended sponsorship amount, I just wanted to note that the remaining balance in that budget is $40,000. So depending on if and how much you choose to recommend for these sponsorships, they would be taken out of that $40,000 that's remaining. With that, I'd like to read the recommendation. Staff recommends that the board consider approving sponsorship of 1, the Southwest Membrane Operator Association 2023 annual conference event scheduled to be held Tuesday, November 7th, 2023 and Wednesday, November 8th, 2023. And number 2, the Association of California Water Agencies 2023 Fall Conference event scheduled to be held from Tuesday, November 28th, 2023 through Thursday, November 30th, 2023. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any of your questions.
Great. Thank you very much, Hazel. So basically, it's up to the committee to decide what you think the recommended amount is to go to the full board. I'm going to start just by asking a couple other questions in case I did miss it or not. But this Southwest Membrane Operators Association, which I know we've supported in the past, do we have staff that goes to this? And if so, how many?
Yes, we do. I believe Susanna Lee is very active with SMOA. We've had a long history with our involvement with SMOA. And I believe I heard yesterday that we have a white paper that's been introduced for this conference. We expect it to be approved, and so we would expect to be presenting on relation to the JMM Phase 2 expansion at that conference.
So, but how many staff typically go, or do you plan to have go, if we have a thought?
Typically, we have like between 1 to 2 staff going to the events. And in the past, we attended the trainings that provides membrane trainings and whatnot. And I'm currently serving on the board.
I see this logo, it's in Irvine, so it's not far away. Well, with that, you know, my thought would be, and I'm looking through the roster of things, I would look at sponsoring for the $1,200 level because it also includes 2 full conference registrations, which probably would assist in what we would have spent anyways. Also, we of course get some recognitions, but the other 2 below that don't include a registration. And so I think just looking at the value, the $1,200 level, which is more level. So that would be my thought, Director Williams.
I agree.
Director Williams, he likes that as well. Do you have any questions or comments also?
No, I'm just glad to hear that we're participating.
Let's see, Director Gray, any questions?
No, thank you.
Director Gear?
No, thank you.
Okay, so that'll be that one, $1,200 the committee recommends. And then the second one is the Aqua Conference. I'm gonna look at that. This one, and I heard what you said last year, we did $6,500, which does also include, it looks like, 2 complimentary registrations. And if you do the 3,000 level, the only difference really is how many registrations, I think, right? I don't see a difference.
Yes, the only thing with this one, I do want to point out that the way that their sponsorships work, it's more of like a cumulative for the year.
Oh.
So if we've sponsored any of their other events earlier in the year, that total, in addition to whatever it is that we decide to sponsor for Aqua Fall, is where then they come up with what benefits we get. So for example, let's say that we did sponsor a 3,000 earlier in the year for Aqua Spring, and then this one we decide to do 3,500, that would actually put us into the gold level benefits because it's cumulative for the year.
So I'm not 100% sure what to do on this one just yet, but my initial thought was for the silver level, $3,000. But if we did the $3,000, Hazel, with what you just said, what that mean? Do we have something cumulative that?
In just a second, I'm pulling up here because I do want to see what it was that we did earlier in the year. So maybe just a quick second. We did Aqua Spring. I know that that's one we usually do. Okay, so for Aqua Spring, we did. I did 1,000. So if we did the 3,000 for Aqua Fall, that would put us in 4,000. So we would still be under the silver benefits.
Which still means we get the one.
The one, yeah. And then that's for next year's events. So we'd have those available for spring and fall conferences 2024, not for this year.
For what it's worth, I mean, my thought, unless you think different, but I think that the silver level would be fine.
Well, I'd like to hear from our general manager.
The way Aqua works is that when you approve this, our staff then works with Aqua to find an appropriate opportunity for our funds to be dedicated to the conference. I think most of you have all participated in several Aqua conferences, and there's an opportunity to kind of see all of the logos of different members, and of course the outreach that takes place through that. I think in looking at the silver option, I think it'll provide an excellent opportunity for us to find an opportunity for West Basin to help Aqua out. You will definitely see a presence from West Basin there at the conference. So I think that's more than fair.
We have no.
Correct.
Very good. Okay. Let's see, any other questions from other directors or comments? Yeah.
No, I agree.
Greg.
I agree too. I support it, definitely.
Director Williams, other question?
Yes. What kind of training opportunities for our staff will be available at this conference?
I can pull up their tentative program that they've released. I know that they do tend to have a lot of the annual like required trainings for staff and electeds as well. I don't see specifics. There's ethics training, media training.
Church Williams, are you referring to Aqua?
Yes.
Let me try to answer it. At each of the Aqua conferences, they actually have different tracks. So if you look at the 2 days filled with all the different courses and opportunities to learn, they usually have a finance or accounting track. They always have a legal track, so you can actually get your continuing legal education. And then they always have a communications track. Now, within that, you have interwoven state and federal policies and government affairs. So it's an excellent opportunity to learn about the industry as a whole, but those are the primary tracks as far as continuing through your legal education, finance, and of course, communication.
And what's on tap for this will be the fall conference? Okay, the next conference coming up,
With Aqua would be the spring conference.
spring conference. Where's that gonna be?
That they have a lot of that info available. Aqua Spring, which is expected May 7th through May 9th, will be in Sacramento.
Okay. Well, I'm looking for an opportunity for our staff to be able to get that training. We should have people involved in to make sure that we stay abreast of what's happening. And then, of course, you're going to let all of the board members know where they stand on being in compliance with the training that we're supposed to have, right?
Right. And I think we're up to.
They're all good so far.
Okay, very good. Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay. So, well, Aqua, of course, is a major part of everything that we do is Aqua and through Aqua. So, of course, it's a very good conference for us to attend if we're able. I know I plan to go out there. Thankfully, it is, driving distance in the desert this year. And so hopefully some of our colleagues will go, but also staff. And I know EJ works really well to make sure that staff has the opportunity to go. So with that, though, I think it's reasonable that we would just look at the silver level, just $3,000. And I think that the board would probably support that. And we earlier said the awards level for the prior item. So that's what I would recommend goes to the full board and Director.
I concur.
Concurs. Okay, thank you very much. Now, get my papers in order. Next item is 5, D as in dog. Approval process for LAFCO, Special District Alternate Member Election. EJ.
Mr. Chairman, for this presentation, we have Desiree Quintero, our Manager of Administration. However, I did want to point out that earlier today, I did receive a letter from one of the candidates. We have made copies, and I believe they are there with you at the podium. And for Director Gray, I believe, was that emailed? We will get that to you as soon as possible, Director Gray. But I'll hand it over to Desiree for this presentation.
Can I ask
Afternoon.
the person, Mr. Chair, can I ask the name of the person the letter is coming from, please?
This is Mr. Stephen Brown.
Thank you.
Someone named Mr. Stephen Brown from Pasadena. But go ahead, Desiree.
This item can be found beginning on packet page 88. So since 1994, special districts in Los Angeles County have been represented by 2 members and 1 alternate of the Local Agency Formation Commission. LAFCO is responsible for overseeing the changes to local government boundaries involving the formation and expansion of cities and special districts. The commission is comprised of 9 members and 6 alternates. Director Donald L. Deere currently serves as one of the special district representatives to LAFCO. Nominations for the alternate member election closed on August 15th. An election ballot can be found included as attachment A on packet page 90. Ballot lists 5 candidates for special district LAFCO alternate member: Micah Ali, Stephen Appleton, Stephen Brown, Gary Burns, and Sharon Raghavakari. The completed ballot must be returned by 5 p.m. on Friday, October 27th. With that, I would like to read the recommendation. Per the West Basin Municipal Water District Administrative Code, with regard to the election of LAFCO directors and alternate directors, the president will act as instructed by a majority of the board. With that, staff recommends that the board authorize the president to cast a vote for 1 candidate to be special district alternate member for the Los Angeles County LAFCO for the term expiring in May of 2026.
Thank you, Desiree. So just so I understand the process, I mean, at the end of the day, the board as a whole needs to decide who we're going to support, or the majority of the board has to decide we're going to support. And that really would be our board meeting, not today. But we see who the candidates are. Nominations are closed.
Yes.
Right? So it seems to me the best way to discuss this is at the full board meeting, you know, I mean, rather than. Yeah, I agree. Well, no offense to any of these folks, but I think that would be best for us to the full board talk about it. And I certainly want to hear Director Deere's opinions when on our board meeting. And then I see it looks like 2 days after our board meeting. So if we decide on our board meeting date, we're good with the deadline.
Yes.
Right? And my last question on this is we've only received 1 correspondence from the candidates. True?
Yes, correct.
If we get others, will you somehow get that to the board?
Yes, we will forward it to the board. Yes.
And we'll have it at the board meeting as well.
Correct.
Or I don't know the answer to this. Do these people, if they want to come to the board meeting and talk, do they get to talk, or how does that work? I don't remember what we've done.
So West Basin staff has not invited any of the nominated candidates. We obviously could. Any member of the public can obviously attend a meeting both virtually and in person if they want to address the board under public comment.
I just want to understand that. I don't think we go out of our way to invite them, but obviously if someone wants to show up and they can talk to us. Okay, so with that, there really is.
Excuse me 1 second.
Yes, sir, Director Williams.
But board members can make recommendations at the board meeting.
We're under discussion, right? Yeah. We have to take a vote on it, right?
Yes.
Sounds good. Any other questions on this item?
Just a comment, Mr. Chair.
Correct.
Hello. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
go ahead.
really look forward to Director Deere's recommendation, since he is our representative on the board. So I would just emphasize that. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Gray.
Yes. Thank you, Director Gray. I do as well. Director Deere, any questions or comments?
Not this time.
Very good. So this will just move on to the full board meeting with no recommendation. Letter, I'll list out as 5, excuse me, 5, yes, 5, action item 5, yeah, as in front. Recommendation to authorize payment invoice to reimburse Los Angeles Department of Water and Power for proportional costs incurred upon completion of construction for the South Gardena Recycled Water Pipeline Project. Mr. Chairman.
I believe you actually stepped over item 5E.
Oops. Did I? Wait a minute, what? Oh, I did. I'm so sorry. Can we just do it out of order since I did it that way? Let's.
Of course, and I'm happy to discuss this item. We actually have staff here to present this item. Tammy Hurley-High, our Water Policy and Resources Analyst, is here. I did want to point out that this item is actually in relation to our ongoing discussions with Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. And it is my recommendation now that the committee consider moving this item to the full board without a recommendation. If you would like that presentation, we're happy to do that, but we can obviously do that at the full board meeting.
Here's what I would like to do. So you're recommending it goes forward to the board for discussion. So I don't think we need a full-on presentation unless the committee members disagree. Is there maybe that very high-level thing you need to tell us? Otherwise, I would hold off the presentation today.
Yeah, simply West Basin Municipal Water District several years ago actually implemented or initiated a grant opportunity for an extension off of our water recycling distribution system. In doing so, we recognized that there were customers in the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power service area that could potentially utilize recycled water as part of this project. LADWP constructs their own projects. So in getting the grant that we got through the Integrated Regional Water Management, we actually agreed to share a proportionate share with the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power so they could connect their portion and we connected our portion. And so the recommendation ultimately will be that we provide LADWP a proportionate share of that grant. And so we can get into the details of that at the full board meeting, but that's the general concept there.
Okay, very good. Thank you. I concur with staff's recommendation just to put this on the full board agenda and we can discuss it as a whole there. With Director Williams, any questions or comments? Anything on that? I think it's good.
No, thank you.
Thank you. So I apologize for skipping the last item on the previous page, the prior page. Action calendar 5E as in Edward, California Public Employee Retirement System, statutory and regulatory requirements for publicly available salary schedule. BJ.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. So this is just a procedural item that is required. For this presentation, we have Elisa Mecenas-Batalio, our Manager of Human Resources.
Good afternoon, Chairman Houston, members of the board. I'm here to present item 5E that starts on packet page 102. West Basin Municipal Water District contracts with the California Public Employees Retirement System known as CalPERS to provide pension benefits to all its employees. CalPERS regularly issues circular letters that provide important notices to all CalPERS agency members. So a CalPERS circular letter notes that all public agencies are required to have a publicly available pay schedule. And per the Public Employee Retirement Law, Government Code 20636 requires that pay rate and special compensation schedules, ordinance, or similar documents be public records available for public scrutiny. So with that said, West Basin salary schedule for fiscal year 2023-24 included as attachment A on packet page 105 has been updated to consider the 2023 Consumer Price Index CPI for our general area, in addition to an increase of the salary grades range from 4.69% based on an outside agency survey of like agencies using their overall average cost of living increase. The proposed schedule has also been updated to incorporate the title change of the Executive Manager of Finance to Chief Financial Officer. The following position titles are being added to the schedule to broaden the classification diversity within a department to demonstrate the years of experience and for retention purposes. Those classifications are as follows: Senior Human Resource Analyst, Senior Contracts Administrator, Records Management Administrator, Records Maintenance Technician, Public Information Assistant, Facility Maintenance Administrator, Facility Maintenance Technician, Principal Water Quality and Environmental Compliance Analyst, and Senior Water Quality and Environment Compliance Analyst. Also, due to the classifications, the position of Principal Accountant and Manager of Administration Board Secretary salary salary ranges are adjusted to reflect a more appropriate salary range. Pursuant to the CalPERS regulations, the amended salary schedule must be posted on the district's website for public view. There is no fiscal impact, and at this point, the staff would like to recommend that the board approve the proposed amended salary schedule. So with this said, are there any questions that I may answer for the committee?
Mr. Chairman, if I could add just a few things. First and foremost, this will, as Elisa mentioned, this will not impact anybody's current salary. For the most part, this actually just creates those salary ranges based off of independent review of the cost of living increase within our service area. Secondly, what we found was that in certain circumstances, certain departments had multiple different levels of employment classifications that were not spread across the entire organization. So those new classifications that Elisa mentioned just provides us with flexibility as far as maintaining staff, long-term, and then of course gives us flexibility as far as when we bring and onboard new staff. So that's simply the idea behind including those classifications. But this will not impact any current employee and or their current salary.
Any questions?
Well, thank you.
No questions either. So with that, I would recommend this goes forward for approval by the board.
I concur.
Concurs. Very much. Okay, now, information calendar, item 6A, cost of service, fiscal policy.
Chairman, this item is a very interesting item to bring forward to this committee and of course to the full board. As you're all aware, West Basin right now is in the process of implementing and conducting a cost of service study, not only for the recycled water that we provide our customer agencies, but also, of course, our potable water and the services that we provide. As part of this effort, we're recognizing that there are several different policy matters and decisions that we would like to highlight for the committee and the board that ultimately will need board support and or direction for as far as how we move forward as far as assigning those costs. And so for this presentation that'll focus on the fiscal policies, we do have Mary Ann Rexroad, our manager of finance, as well as our consultants, Dave Jones of Hazen and Sawyer, Eric Helgensen from Bartle Wells and Associates, and of course, I think that's the entire team for this presentation. So I'll hand it off to Mary Ann.
Thank you, EJ. I think you said it all, but I'll just add a few more comments. Good afternoon again, Chairman Houston, members of the board and committee. As EJ has already communicated, you had selected Bartle Wells, Hazen and Sawyer Bartle Wells team to do the cost of service study. They were here last month to present the overall project, to give us what the objectives were. We looked at also the services they were going to provide, as well as the project schedule. Today, they will present an overview of looking at our reserves. Sometimes we call them designated funds. They've also looked at our debt service coverage. And so they will have that information to present to you. But before I do turn it over to Dave, I wanted to also welcome, we have Darren Hodge here, Managing Director at PFM. He may look familiar. He's been working with us for a number of years. Darren has extensive experience working with the district as well as with credit rating agencies. And what we're about to discuss today with you is very important as we look forward for the district's debt portfolio, possibly depending on what projects are approved to be built and whether we raise rates, go out for debt, a combination. But all this is very important for us to discuss. And as EJ communicated, we would love to have your feedback. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Dave to introduce your team and the item.
Thank you, Darren.
And before you go on,
Yeah.
we're going to start on page 121 of the packet. Sorry, Dave.
No problem. Thank you, Mary Ann. Chairman Houston, members of the board, really pleased to be here. Hazen, Sawyer, and Bartle Wells really appreciates this opportunity. Much like last time, I'm going to hand it over to Eric Helgeson of our team for Bartle Wells. He's the sort of our subject matter expert in this, and so he's going to make a very brief presentation, verbal presentation, covering the memo.
Thank you, Dave. Good afternoon. My name is Eric Helgeson. It's nice to be back in front of the committee to discuss this memo we submitted. Also, thank you to the Mary Ann and Darren and the other support, the rest of the support from the West Basin team as we put this together. So we reviewed the district's designated funds policies and just overall liquidity policies. We reviewed the policies themselves, the current projected liquidity position of the district, and how this will impact our work on the rate study and what our recommended outcome will be. We started by reviewing the reserve policies. The policies consist of the reserve policy consists of two overall categories, one being the core categories. This core categories, the sum of the targets of all the core category funds is essentially the minimum reserve level the district wants to maintain. And the other categories added to the core categories is kind of the upper boundary target of reserves for the district. We felt all of the component funds were reasonable and thoughtfully assembled, and that the overall minimum target was a very reasonable minimum target for the district. The district's current reserve level is right at the current minimum target, the current minimum core fund target. Comparing that to the previous ratings that the district, when the district received its previous credit ratings, the reserve levels have declined. And as part of the rate study, we're going to look at bringing those reserve funds up to those levels. We recommend exceeding those levels slightly. I think when the previous rating occurred, the district's days cash on hand, which is another measurement of the reserves, was about 160 days, and we recommend that the district maintain it about 180 days. The reason for this is to mitigate risk and also to maintain the current credit rating. It's much harder to improve a credit rating than it is to maintain your current credit rating. And this opinion also will go for the debt service coverage policy as well. So the next thing we reserved was the debt service coverage. And basically what debt service coverage is the measure of the district's ability to pay for the annual debt service payments with the amount of cash it has after it pays for all of its operating costs. The district targets debt service coverage ratio of 1.75 and is legally required to maintain a credit ratio of 1.2 based on its current debt obligations. The district's projected to be right at about that 1.2 level in the coming year. And we do recommend that the district, that's probably the more critical metric to be looking to improve. When the district received its previous credit rating, it was at about 1.6. So we're going to take this information and we recommend that the district get on a trajectory to be improving its liquidity position. As we go into the rate study, we'll look at different scenarios of how quickly and how much the district improves its liquidity position and what impact that would have on rates, and probably come back to the board with a few different options to look at for moving into that improved position. And so that's basically just a high level overview of the memo we submitted.
May I just say a few words? So I just want to keep in mind of what some of the things that Eric had pointed out, that it's always easier for us to maintain where we're at than if we were to get downgrade and have to get back up. It's going to be a lot harder. So obviously, we're not asking the board to look at increasing our credit rating, but we do definitely want to maintain it. And as he also pointed out, looking forward, we do see that some of these metrics have been, will be declining. And so that's obviously a concern. And so we want to address all those issues with the board through this study. Darren, I don't know if you want to add anything as far as the credit rating agencies and some of the, maybe the thoughts that they pointed out the last time about our days of cash on hand or any of those items. Please share your thoughts.
Yeah, no, I just reiterate everything Mary Ann and Eric said. They're absolutely right, in my opinion. You know, we've spent a lot of time with the rating agencies trying to maintain our current level of ratings. What does that do? Well, it supports our letter of credit costs for our commercial paper program. In addition, in the future, if we look to access the capital markets or refinance our debt, the higher our credit rating, the lower the interest rates we're going to borrow at. So when we borrowed in the past, we've had days cash around 160 days, and coverage we've tried to maintain around that 175 level. The rating agencies have noted that if we see material deterioration in those levels, that's cause for concern. So that places pressure on our ratings. So I think this discussion is incredibly important as we talk about the future and especially ratings.
Let's see, questions from colleagues?
Right now, thank you.
Let's see. Let me just ask a question. I guess it is a little bit overarching because you all are sort of this dialogue with us. Because obviously we have kind of rescoped a little bit of the way we look at things here at the agency over the years. So I think there's been a bit of a movement to utilize our cash reserves and ways to pay as we go. Obviously, you're taking that into account, but also probably making recommendations as to how much we should hold or where we should look at borrowing sometimes instead of paying, you know, from our funds or general funds. So you want to, can you highlight that for us, Mary Ann?
So as you recall, in this current budget, 23-24 budget, we had put into the budget that we were going to pull from our designated funds or reserves. You're absolutely right. That will or could have an impact. And so that's why we want to make sure that before we do that, we do look at what that impact will be. We don't want to go down that road and find out, you know, it's going to be detrimental. So we do definitely want to look at those scenarios. So there'll be a tool that Hazen and Sawyer Bartle Wells is putting together where we'll look at different scenarios so we can see, you know, if we do this, what the outcome it will be or that. So it'll give us some choices. And so we'll have a better idea once we get that tool together that what the recommendation will be. But we do want to make sure we hit certain targets. And I think that's what Eric and Darren are talking about. You know, we are at we have a target of 1.75. You know, we haven't always hit that target. But that's really important, especially in light of what the credit rating agencies have said in their report, that we are below what our other peer agencies are achieving. So something to keep in mind. And then also with the designated funds, how much we do have on hand. You know, we're, according to the rating agencies, we're okay. But to me, I don't know, maybe this is not a very good analogy. I kind of look at it as like, it's like grading on the scale. Right. You know, you can reach a certain level and, oh, it's an A, but when you compare it to everybody else, maybe we're a C. So just, those are all the things we want to look at going forward. And again, we want to present this and just have you understand what we're looking at, why we're looking at it. And if you have any questions or direction, we'd love to.
And remind us what the timetable is. It's going to take a while, I know. What was the plan?
Right. Our original schedule is complete certainly within a year. And that would be by the end of this fiscal year. But we're on target actually probably early spring, late winter.
Our next budget discussions.
The whole idea is to have the information you need to formulate your budget for the following fiscal year.
I guess I have two thoughts when you were speaking, Mariana. One is, of course, I think it'll be really important for us to understand what some of the other agencies, the ones that are similar in maybe size or the way they manage their operations. So we just know how we're ranking versus them on their financials. So the thought when you come back, you know how we always ask you to look at a lot of different agencies for other options, other reasons we're discussing things, because I think you made a good point that sometimes it's really good for us to look at, well, what are the others doing that they're healthy, or maybe they are healthy, but because, we're trying to figure out what the magic number is of the formula, and sometimes it does need to be adjusted. Sometimes it's not the end of the world, we don't hit the metrics, but I think that would be great for us to, when you come back at that time, or how you showcase, like, what are those other agencies doing, so we feel comfortable and confident in the policy decision here. That's one thing. The other thing too, and you mentioned, so coming out of this was the tool, you're going to create a tool that is this where staff could go in and do scenarios, and those be presented to the board, for the
Yes.
what ifs.
Yes.
For down the road.
That's part of this scope of service that we'll have this tool. As I mentioned, Bartle Wells will be putting that together with Hazen Sawyer. And the idea is it'll be used for years to come. It should be flexible enough that we can come up with different scenarios, present that obviously to the board to see what your input is. And it's going to look at a long range. I think we were talking a minimum of 10 years. So, and that's going to also include reviewing our CIP as well. That's a very important component of this as well. So we'll have to discuss that.
So if I'm understanding it right, that's where you could plug into the tool if we did like a pay-go versus if we financed or, borrowed, et cetera, and have different scenarios for making decisions with the board, on projects going forward, once this was in place, something like that.
And what the impact that would be.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. Got it. And honestly, I just, I totally understand we have differences of opinion as directors and philosophies and so on and so forth. That's why we definitely need the staff to give us really good options and understanding so that those of us in these chairs can make good informed decisions, because there's not always the right answer. And these are policy answers and kind of political answers sometimes. So we definitely need the tools from staff to give us really good options for us to make those decisions in the future. So I'm thinking long term here, because I know how it is that sometimes there's different mindsets. It's kind of this way or the highway, and I think the directors, we all have to understand, in our own minds, be comfortable when we're going to make a vote, to this coming back down the road and really having that, you guys, your staff. One last question from me, and that is, at some point, do you end up talking to board members one-on-one or what have you? Wasn't that part of this or not? I don't remember, but, when we talk about the bigger study,
We've discussed some director outreach. Obviously, we know and understand how busy you all are, but we're happy to meet with you one-on-one to run through some of these different issues, because there's so many, they're very complex, and we want to make sure that you have everything that you need to make decisions down the road.
Part of it, if the board members want to talk to you all, or you all want to talk to us, that avenue's there. Okay, very good. All right, that's it for me, but any questions from
Yeah, no questions. I just would like to say that I'm glad right now that we're in the information stage, and that we are going to learn more about this. So, because sometimes for me, the bottom line is not always the best line. So I want to be able to deal with that issue when it comes up, and that I know so little about this. I'm just looking forward to learning more.
okay. Hear anything?
Nothing.
Director Gray?
Yes, thank you. First, I want to say thank you for bringing this presentation, Marianne, and the young man that was there making the presentation to the board. It's a very important tool, I think, for the board to have. And, I certainly support the comments from the board members there. And I'm looking forward to the scenarios that we can understand and make some informed decisions. I do agree that the 1.75 should be the goal. I know we're not there yet, but I'm very conservative, so I believe we should do more if we can. So I think it's going to be an exercise that the board has to go to reach that goal, if that's what we decide we want to do. So thank you for that presentation this morning or afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Gray. So with that, we're complete with this item. I want to say thank you, gentlemen, for being here in person and in these continued updates and getting our feedback, and Mary Ann as well. So, certainly the general manager knows how to get a hold of us. We need to be contacted for various things and vice versa. So. All right, we are getting close to the finish line. So 6B as in boy, our monthly financial report.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The last item that we have, as you mentioned, is the monthly financial report. For this presentation, we have Sandra Ruiz, our accountant 2.
Good afternoon, Chairman Houston, members of the board and committee. I will be presenting the monthly financial report, item 6B, which begins on packet page 127. I just wanted to point out we had 2 handouts that would be part of this presentation. As required by West Basin's Administrative Code, staff is required to submit various financial reports to the board to keep them appraised of the financial condition and future needs of the district. Starting on packet page 129, item 6BA. This is your demands list for the month ending August 31st, 2023. The report concludes on page 135, and you will see the total disbursements for the month were $18.9 million, almost $19 million. Just 2 items to point out. As usual, the Met bill was $10.5 million, which counted almost 50%, a little bit more than 50% of the total expenditures. If we go back to packet page 129, if I could ask you to look at check number 90115, we paid the county our annual LAPCO membership. And I just wanted to point that out. We spoke about that earlier today. The second item I wanted to point out would be on the same page, check number 90129 to JR FELAC. It's for the construction of the JMM Phase 2 expansion project, and that was $2.1 million. Other than that, I didn't have anything else of note. If you had any questions.
Go ahead.
Okay, second item I would be presenting on would be one of the handouts. It's item 6B, and that's our cash and investment report for the month ending August 31st, 2023. As Mary Ann pointed out, the presentation from Chandler just included what they are managing, but this report also includes our cash, our CDs, and investment pools. So with that said, the total market value for the month was $67.1 million. To the right, you will see on this graph, the majority of our investments are in the investment pool or California class, with the second highest being the treasuries. I could ask you to go to the next page. That would be the credit quality distribution. And you can see almost 40% of our investments are in AAA rating. The next page would be the maturity distribution page. And you would see we are highly liquid in our investments, which differs from the presentation earlier. So, and that, because that includes also our cash and our investment pool money. The next page would be our transaction ledger for the month. And we wanted to point out that we did invest in a CD with City First Bank, $250,000. And we were able to move over an ICS account and a money market account into the CDARS program. One was with City First for $750,000, and the other one was with Malaga Bank with $1 million. Anything else, Mary?
Just as a reminder, we are still working with other local and community banks to see if there's other opportunities for us to invest. We have reached out to a number of them, and we'll bring a presentation next month to discuss those options with the board.
Okay, and then the rest of the report is our holdings for the month. And with that, I'll pause if there's any questions. Okay, the next item is the second handout, and that would be our monthly water sales for the month August 31st, 2023. So you'll see the potable sales for the month was 8,475 acre feet, which was a little bit less than projected than last year. We did have some rainfall in August. Like if you recall, tropical storm Hurricane Hillary was hit, and that accounted for almost 3 inches of rain. So that might be why usage was lower. The bottom paragraph is the imported barrier for the month, which was 349 acre feet, which was in line with almost what was used last year. On the second page, you will see the recycled water usage for the month, which was 2,866 acre feet. This was an increase over last month. If we look to the bottom and the table and we compare for barrier, you will see barrier was up from last year. Refineries was in line, and disinfected tertiary, Title 22, was lower than expected. Else, if you have any questions?
No, thank you.
And then the final item I have is 6BD on packet page 138. This is the Director's Conference and Travel Expenses through August 2023. And finally, the last page, 139, is the Executive Management and Staff Travel Expense report.
Any questions on this? I guess, thank you. Just one, maybe more of a general question, because it's more of an E&O committee, but I mean, just in the big picture, EJ, I mean, how's our recycled water program? The big picture selling less water, or are we just holding in place just with everything going on?
I think we're doing our best right now to hold in place. I think they mentioned that in certain areas we are increasing. We're working with Veolia and our operations team to decrease the amount of potable water we utilize at the locations with our recycled water customers. And we'll have a more robust presentation for you at the E&O committee.
Right, let's see. I don't think I have any other questions for our finance people. I want to say thank you very much. Closed session, we do not have closed session today. Director's comments and future agenda items. Any board members comments? We'll start with Director Williams.
No, thank you.
Director Deere.
I attended a monthly LAFCO meeting this morning in Los Angeles, and I was reelected as chairman of the commission again for another year.
Good. Congratulations. Thank you for representing us. And by the way, we got that bill, they paid it, so we saw that. Thank you, Director Deere. Director Gray, any comments?
Yes, thank you, Chair. First, congratulations, Chairman Deere for LAFCO, for the LAFCO board. And I wanted to say that it was a great meeting today. Thank you to all the staff and those who made presentations, general manager and all the board members. Great meeting. Thank you, Chair.
All right, great, thank you. And I have nothing to add. I just want to say thank you again, staff. Thank you for the work, but also being efficient. We've cranked through this meeting, and a really good presentation earlier today by the finance folks. That was great. So with that, our next scheduled meeting is going to be on October 18th of 2023.